Welcome, everybody, to the show. This is Counterclipping episode number 180 for July 8th, 2024. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming out this very fine, if slightly steamy evening here in sunny, though, Northeast Ohio. So, once again, tonight we will be talking about series war games. I want to specifically focus on kind of the way that those series war games have evolved, although they may have stopped evolving. I'm not sure. We are still clipping Atlantic Wall. One of the things that I got done during the week is to finish clipping the first campaigns in Europe from World at War magazine. You will see an unboxing of that on Thursday, so be prepared for that. We are drinking Basil Hayden's once again, and we will be drinking this until it is gone, because I need the cork, and this is my closest bottle to empty. This is bottled at a paltry 40%, unfortunately. It is nevertheless perfectly fine. I will probably not buy it again. I'd rather buy something experimental, and there's definitely bourbons I prefer over this for the price. So, but it's certainly not bad by any means. I was outside between work and this. I was outside reading, and it was pretty muggy. So, in any case, we do have a giveaway this evening. The giveaway last week did not pan out, so we will be doing it again this week. And since it's no longer a secret, we'll be doing Secrets of the Ancients. Marty Sample, who won last week, didn't want it, and Fucko, who also won last week, didn't want it. So we will be doing it again. It is a cool-looking campaign for Traveler. We do have some Traveler news here tonight, although I don't really want to bloat the show with RPG news, but in this case, it's Traveler, so we were making an exception. So, ooh, Doers 21. So that sounds actually pretty good. I don't particularly dislike Doers. I just don't particularly want to drink Doers neat. If there's a Scotch-based cocktail, I will certainly be happy to mix it in something, or, frankly, I will be happy to drink it on the rocks. So, that is exactly, Scott Bell, this is the exact plan. You reuse the cork for the cork on the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Rye, which is outstanding, by the way, and I want to get back into it, but I have to have a cork because we can't just leave it open. So in any case, we'll have a giveaway sometime in the next hour or so. And of course, if you haven't done so already, please do thumbs up the video and subscribe to the channel. If you're following, if you're watching on some platform other than YouTube, do whatever it is that you people do over there. The vast majority of people are, in fact, watching on YouTube. And we need to shout out to the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair, whose support and encouragement help keep this thing rolling along week after week after week, as well as to our good friends at Noble Knight Games, who are the official sponsor of the Counter Clipping Show. Now, I don't have a new campaign to announce this week. I'm actually going to wait until the next time the credit rolls over so I know what I've got to start with, and we'll see what we can do at that point. So hopefully that will be by next week, but if it's not, don't be totally shocked. But if it isn't by the week after that, I'll be quite surprised. We are planning to go to WBC in a few weeks, so we've got plans in the works for that. I will probably do so. All right, I think we screwed that up, unfortunately. So, and of course I screwed this up too. So one moment, well, that was my fault, folks. That was actually not. All right, well, we'll take a look at that when we get to the news. Let me put the ticker up, however. So I will announce the next Noble Knight campaign when we have some credit to work with. So it'll be a little more. Well, I'll announce it when we have some credit to work with. Let me put it that way. But I'm excited by it. So, and it's something I wanted. I've been kind of working towards for a while anyway. So we can keep moving on personal goals as well, which, Atlantic Well's part of too. I want to bring more video to Atlantic Well, and I'll actually have something to say about like actual friggin' videos that'll be coming and not just shorts. So before we get any All right, that was me again. So what's happening is the mouse, I'm like moving the mouse over and it's hitting the clipper and clicking off the screen. So let me fix this again. All right. Now, it's not like that's going to be a shock anyway, so that is okay. So Lee Grant, thank you so much for the support. It is much appreciated. Recommend Basil Hayden's Toast Bourbon. I will totally try that. I like Maker's too. Maker's Mark's perfectly good. I don't like, it's not my favorite. I think it's a little boring, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's good stuff. There's nothing wrong with this either. It's good stuff. It's just a little pricey for what it is. So I will remind folks that there is a Noble Knight affiliate link in the video description. So whatever the next campaign turns out to be, you will be helping me along by using the Noble Knight affiliate link. And thanks to all those folks who have done so. Yeah, no kidding. Well, we're clipping. No, this isn't the mouse's fault. This is my fault. I said that. I admitted that. Anyway, let's say hello to Alan Salazar, Alistair Logie, Andrew Cook, Bayonet Brant from the Armchair Dragoons, Brian Jarvis, Christopher Smith, David Zell, E4 Airman from sunny Southern Ohio, Ed Holtzman, Eric Goebel, Garrison Venn, Groucho Marks, Henry Sikorsky, HUN644 New, the legend himself, Fucko is here, James Conway, Jeff Beeler, Joe Okabayashi, John C. from the sunny Philippines, Jonathan Dyer, Mean Joe Green, Carl Crater from the Wargame Bootcamp, Lee Grant, Mr. Mark Herman is here. Mark, thanks for stopping by. Marty Sample is here. Marty, I couldn't get the email during the show. I appreciate you sending it to me right away. Somebody just dropped off. Molotov Cockatiel Games, Patrick of Patrick's Tactics and Tutorials, to whom you should all be subscribed already. Paul Sin, Paw, Perry Sparopoulos, Philip Rowe, Rob Johnson, Roy McGaw, welcome to the show, Roy Scott, Bell, Stacking Limit, Todd Cox, Tony Mammal, Vince Ree, William Boardman, and Wolf Dog. And I appreciate everybody coming out tonight, and I apologize to anyone I may have missed in the roll call. So, in any case. So, I guess I'm going to talk, I guess I'll do the actual one news item first. This won't actually take long. There's a new Traveler Kickstarter from Mongoose Publishing. It is the Journal of the Traveler's Aid Society Volume 3. This is new episodes, new issues, if you will, of the Journal of the Traveler's Aid Society for Mongoose Traveler 2nd edition. So if you're interested in this, I grabbed it. If you're interested in this, I am throwing a link into the chat right now. I'm not going to dwell on this, but it's more new issues. You'll see an unboxing video in like a year when it comes out. But in the meantime, the previous two JTOS Kickstarters that Mongoose has done, I am very happy with. There's tons of really, really top-notch material in there. Hexy, thanks for stopping by. So, in any case, This mouse isn't even that old, actually. It is probably a year and a half old. I usually don't go through them quite that quickly. This is possible. I have not even started drinking. That's the problem. The thing is, I've got so on the desk, I'm not going to show you this because I'd have to move the camera. On the desk, I have a box. I'll show you this. This is a flat box that catches all the counter clippings, and I've just mixed them all up. So you're welcome, America. And then there's the clipper, of course, and usually I'll have a counter tray under the box because then I can just pick the box up and put the counters that I've been clipping in the tray. And this time it is an old SPI counter tray instead of the more typical GMT tray. So in any case, it's the mouses don't have balls anymore. So I use a wired mouse. I will seriously consider getting a Bluetooth mouse next time. Let me put it that way. So this is going to be 100% worth watching. France 1944 looks pretty interesting. It's one from the Victory Games days that I don't have. You can actually now see the very bottom of my Victory Games shelf up here. That is the entire Victory Games library. And I am slowly picking some more up. If I was going to buy that game, I would probably elect to buy the one from Compass, not just for the better graphics, but the developer Judd Vance did what appeared to me from watching some video about it, a great deal of additional development work as far as improving the play aids and stuff like that. And it looks really, really well done. So I do think that's the one to go for rather than the old Victory Games one, but you might be able to get the Victory Games one pretty inexpensively. So you never know. So in any case, this is going to be on Fred Serval's channel, Homo Ludens. So just look for that. I don't know if I haven't seen the schedule, but that's Fred's channel. So 8 a.m. Pacific. Oh my God, what an ungodly hour. So, oh my goodness. So 8 a.m. Pacific is what? 5? What is it? No, it's 11 a.m. here. So I hate time zones. I despise time zones. So in any case, get in on the Traveler Kickstarter if you are so inclined, and we will not mention it further tonight, although we will mention Traveler, I am sure. So I'll also mention that there are a bunch of links to me on various social media platforms in the video description, including Blue Sky and TikTok, which are the two kind of newish ones. I have actually figured out what to do with TikTok, which is to do videos that I think are amusing, but not necessarily wargame related. And those that are wargame or maybe RPG related will make their way here to YouTube. But I am going to do little book reviews, actually. So on whatever it is that I'm reading at the moment. So there's a thriving book talk culture on TikTok. I am not suggesting to anybody sign up for TikTok if you're not already on it. But if you are, then go ahead and follow me there. So there's a link, like I said, in the video description. So the cat, I haven't done, have I done any cat videos on TikTok? I don't think I have. I have on Instagram, but I pay very little attention to Instagram, to be completely honest about it. So, but fluffy pet videos are the lifeblood of the internet. So that, and the thing we're not going to talk about here. So excellent. Ed Holtzman has finished clipping Second Volusion from Paper Wars 103. I actually bought it for a couple of reasons. One, I'm not really into modern stuff, okay? So Second Volusia was not like something I was hugely interested in, but I actually talked to some people, including Mo, who spoke very highly of it, and I did want the Third World War counters. So Ed Holtzman has offered generously his extra Third World War counters. I myself do not need them because I bought the magazine. At some point, I would like to actually try the game out, but that is more likely to happen at a convention than anything else. So in any case, gamers block right now. Does that mean you're playing like gamers stuff exclusively, or because I think the last thing I saw you post was not gamers? Am I misremembering that? It's so hard to keep track of this, to be completely honest. It's very, very hard to keep track of this. So in any case, a bunch of new iLaos 1807 videos. Would folks appreciate seeing me highlighting? Because I used to do this, and then I kind of ran out of channels, but enough time has probably elapsed that I might be able to do this. With like have some new channels, right? Because there are some newer wargaming channels that post date my stopping doing that. If folks would like to see me highlight, say, a YouTube channel of the week, let me know. So either here or but via email, ardwulfslair@gmail.com. Brent McCabe, thanks for stopping by. I did not do an unboxing of Le Grand Guerre because it did not come shrink wrapped, but eventually you will see a video of Le Grand Guerre because I intend to do something with it. I do not buy stuff that I have no intention of playing. I at least nominally intend to play the stuff that I buy. Sometimes I'm on crack, but you know, what can you do? The way to make sure you play a game at a convention is to have them This is exactly correct. And we're talking about what we're doing next year for Origins already, although no decisions have been made. So I found myself, John Strain, thanks for stopping by. I found myself picking up a lot more gamers stuff over the last year. I want to say, so like in terms of like library growth by publisher, the king of over the last 2 years for me has been SPI. All this stuff, right? But I have picked up a decent chunk of gamer stuff. I've got several Civil War Brigade series games. I've got the entire Napoleonic Brigade series. I've got a giant pile, although not everything, of TCS games now. So Ryan Huard says it would be awesome. So yeah, I will consider bringing that back. So, I mean, there's people that do this, like figure out some kind of randomization scheme and like, roll third shelf, second game from the left or whatever it is. And then they pick that, pull that down. I think the next thing that's going to hit the table here, I think I have to admit to myself that the Crimea game that I set up and played like half a turn of is just not going anywhere. And it really needs to be picked up so that its spot on the table can be occupied by something that I'm actually going to do. So I think that is going to actually be Campaigns in Europe, the new game from Decision in the latest World at War magazine. Again, Jason W., thanks for stopping by. I am very interested in trying that out. The e-rules are not yet up on the World at War magazine website, but I would imagine that those will be along before too much longer. It is an incredibly promising project. Crimea game, when I say Crimea, well, I guess I do have multiple Crimea games, don't I? I am specifically referring to OCS Crimea. Well, I would like to play it, but I'd probably rather not play it solitaire, to be honest. And if I'm going to play it solitaire, it might be easier to just play it on Vassal. So, or not play it solitaire on Vassal. That would be fine too. All right. Did I get all the, yeah. So it's going to be hard to see this, but I'm going to show it anyway. So the units that are participating in the landings or airdrops have these stripes on them. That's pretty unusual counters for SPI. So you may have noticed, I suspect that folks have noticed that, relatively speaking, I have not done a lot of video, like regular video content lately. I've done a lot of shorts over the last month, and those are great, but they're not, full-length videos either. And the live shows have gone on, right? But the live shows require, I won't say they require no preparation, because that's not really true, but they require a different type of work that I like doing more than, than the video editing that is required by a lot of like regular videos. So I am pleased to report that there will be several regular videos that will get released over the next week or so. That includes an interview. That includes a two unboxings, a new Wargaming storage video, and I got another one in the works, and a flip through of an RPG product. So we're, stuff's actually gonna show up now, and that'll be great. So anyway, Ryan Eward says he had some automation set up for game picking, but needs to update the database. I've got I think I need to put, I think the only thing I'm missing is I've been very diligent about updating the database until like the last couple of months, where things have just gone completely off the hook between conventions and the awards and all this other stuff. So, hopefully we'll be able to get a rhythm established again now. Let's see. what exactly happens on that score. So, Battle for Normandy. So it does look like the new edition of Battle for Normandy will be out maybe before the end of the year, maybe not, but I think it's before the end of the year, and I'm very excited about that. There's a whole pile of fairly exciting things coming along from GMT, but some of it is relatively far out as well. John Strain once owned SPI and Avalon Hill Gifts for the 1960s Panzerblitz era. So Panzerblitz was 71 or 70 originally, right, when it was like tactical game number 3. And then I think it was like 74 or 73 from Avalon Hill, something like that. Air and Armor looks extremely promising too. I'm looking forward to that showing up, as well as The Last Gamble from Danny Parker and Compass Games. So I can vouch for Hexy's gentlemanliness. So here we are, John Strain. If you haven't stopped by before, we're pretty much here every Monday night, from barring some family tragedy occurring, which has happened in the last several months. Pretty much every Monday night from 8 p.m. Eastern to 10 p.m. Eastern, we are here talking about primarily war games, although, as one gets, there is some drift to the conversation. Let's put it that way. So, I would very much like to get, I just dug into counter trays, and this isn't even all the Americans I got in the tray right now. Many of the Americans are clipped, and then once everything's clipped, I will start sorting it to make sure that everything is actually here. I believe it to be complete, but you never really know until you check. So, found that Crimean War quad, which I picked up at a reasonable buddy deal at Origins. Thanks, Drew, for that. It is missing, I believe, 2 counters, and there's some handmade counters. I made some handmade count. I always forget these damn bingo cards. If Brant doesn't remind me like right before the show, I'm probably going to forget about it. So bear in mind that now I have not looked closely at the Air and Armor rulebook. However, Bruce's rulebook for NATO: The Cold War Goes Hot, his new version of that from Compass, was 80 pages. Okay, so it is a verbose rulebook, but it is also a comprehensive rulebook and a quite clear rulebook. And I was very pleased to basically find every question I had was in the rulebook. So it's not an exceptionally complicated game, and I don't expect that Air and Armor is either. You just can't, there isn't a direct correlation between game complexity and the size of the rulebook necessarily. And I did not find that correlation was particularly tight in the case of NATO, and I expect the same to be the case for Air and Armor, which Bruce and his developer, Fred Schwartz, were showing off at Origins a couple of weeks ago. No, Dan, if Dan had come up with a pseudonym, it would have been something less tasteful. Let me put it that way. So, Brian Mulville, thanks for stopping by. I don't want to shame anybody for not clipping. I am unhappy playing with unclipped games, with some rare exceptions, like the stuff that Blue Panther prints, right? Those are really hard to clip. It can be done. I have tested it on blanks. But they're really hard to clip, and the density and the hex sizes tend to be low enough that I'm not really particularly worried about it. So there are games that I do not clip. Obviously, things that come clip, pre-rounded, I don't bother with that either. But I'm still, one of the things I want to get done for next week is the new T-shirt. So let's try to get that done. Now, like I said, I have not looked at Air and Armor yet. So I've seen it, but I haven't read the rule book. So I cannot speak to it directly, but I do expect, based on the previous work that Fred and Bruce did with NATO, that I will not find it to be a troublesome rulebook. Unlike the CSS rulebook, that is not a wonderful rulebook, although I frankly don't think it's as bad as some people make it out to be. So, in any case, there are some people on Facebook that go absolutely bananas about they're militantly about not clipping their counters. And I'm like, you know what? That's fine. I just don't want to play with you because your counters are unclipped like barbarians. So I am cool with people making that decision for themselves. It is a different decision than I have made. friggin' everything gets clipped in here, okay? Except like the aforementioned exceptions. There are some exceptions, but they are just that, exceptions. I prefer my personal term is uncircumcised counters. They're quite barbarous. So in any case, yeah, I mean, well, plus there's a basic game and an advanced game in GMT's Panzer as well. So I'm sure that's got something to do with it. So, remind me who DeVere Games are again. I don't think I remember that. This is a reasonable way to put it as well. Like I said, I'm not trying to shame anybody into clipping their counters to meet my specifications. It's their game. They can do what they damn well want with it. So, well, I mean, this is of course true, but although I will point out that some Vassal module designers do round the corners of the counters, and I appreciate it when they do, so that they are aesthetically pleasing and fully circumcised. Who's Jackie Fox? This might be an old person, me being an old person here. I have no idea. Is this someone that the kids are paying attention to nowadays with Taylor Swift? I haven't the vaguest idea. I have at least heard of Taylor Swift. I don't like her music, but whatever. That is not my thing. Oh, Jesus. So, boy, this is there's a stark difference here. I can tell you that having played a lot of OCS and zero OSS. OSS means the operational scales system from Compass and Adam Starkweather. The consensus on that, it seems to be that the games are relatively unpolished, but that there is some things that people should like and be paying attention to in that game system. And I'm completely willing to believe that, pending some further information. Now, the thing with the OSS games for me has been that they haven't covered any topics that I'm particularly interested in yet. So, oh, really? I should have recognized the name then, I would think, but I did not. So, yes, old person thing. But the Runaways are now old people music. So there's that. This is possible. This is possible that this will happen. There are an absolutely absurd number of weird simulators floating around. So if somebody did this, I would be surprised, but not stunned. Let me put it that way. You can, for example, treat yourself to Power Washing Simulator and Lawn Mowing Simulator and a variety of other totally absurd things like that. So, Hexasim, at least a lot of the time, has pre-rounded counters as well. Lock and Load typically has pre-rounded counters, so it's not incredibly rare. But yes, I think other than 1914 Knock Paris, I think everything from VUCA that I have seen anyway has been pre-rounded, and I appreciate that. But the fact is that there are some games like 1914 Knock Paris that aren't going to get pre-rounded counters because they're too big. There would be 175 counter sheets if that were the case. And I recognize that there are a couple of publishers that have done games that with pre-rounded counters and with an absurd number of counter sheets, but that I don't think that's a reasonable expectation. So, Knock Paris is pre-rounded? Is it really? Because that's a pretty big game. Am I thinking of something different? That's possible, but maybe not. So there are people that use those little coin cases to protect the chits in chit pull games. I can personally verify that the chits in, say, a GTS game are going to be absolutely mutilated after one full game of that system, because you're going to be manhandling those counters a lot. I had the same thing, or observed. This was Fucko's copy, so it didn't happen to me, but, I was in the game. I saw the chits for the action points just wither away in front of us. That's why I went with the playing cards and sleeves. I probably shouldn't have bothered with the sleeves, considering how cheap regular playing cards are. I could buy a case of 20 of them at Costco if I really needed to. This does not surprise me. Worthington is another company that does a lot of pre-rounded counters, although again, I'm not sure it's everything, but it's everything I could think of off the top of my head has pre-rounded counters. So you know what? I am going to try this at some point, the spray varnish on counters. And I was just about to say I'd be tempted to try it with an SPI game, and maybe I will. It's not like I don't have plenty of extra SPI stuff, but all right. So Stigler says it's their pre-round. It's a bravo to VUCA on that. So I will sleeve cards if I think it's a game that I'm gonna play a lot of. If I don't, then I won't bother sleeving the cards. So, yeah, like I said, I want to try this. I have seen this done and have seen it look really nice at the end. So, well, you know, sources differ too. I will tell you my opinion when I have it, but I do not at this time. So, yeah, Stigler's going to Console World Expo in Phoenix. That's going to, I'm sure, be a wonderful time. And this Franklin, and is Spring Hill included in that too, or is it just Franklin? This is the 1864 in Tennessee campaign, as I recall, from Worthington. It's part of their Civil War Brigade Battle Series. It's quite a good series. If you are looking for a brigade level game that's not super duper complicated, but still feels kind of but still feels a little bit chewy, which is something that I like. I like a game with some chew to it, if you know what I'm saying. So, yep, there you go. Exactly the same type of thing. And certainly, I mean, you've seen, I think all of us have probably seen people's sets of, say, Combat Commander, where you're going through that deck a lot. Those cards get absolutely mutilated as well. I think I have punched and clipped this entire series except for the Grand Campaign set, which has a couple of additional counter sheets. So, well, you know, if Stigler could put up with the summer heat in Portland last year, I think he might be able to deal with Console World Expo. It's probably easier to deal with in Tempe than it is for you know, that your typical Pacific Northwest type of situation. So, yeah, this is totally doable too. You could throw, where is it? Mark McNair's suggestion of making cards, printing them out, and then sliding them into, sliding whatever you made into sleeves, maybe backed up with some real cards from a game you don't like particularly. Well, we're already fucking this up, I see. Nope, we're not. Or magic cards, or, you know, regular playing cards from a deck that's no longer complete or something like that. So I think this is, so Molotov Cocktail's talking about the sort of vertical wargaming. There's a channel, I think, called the Vertical Wargamer, which is a pretty interesting channel. The basic idea is that you have some kind of magnetization on the counters. There's two different ways to do that there's probably more, but there's two I'll tell you about. One of which is to do the thing that Bruce Harper recommends doing with World at War, which is to buy the laminated or the sticky on one side magnetic tape, and just put it on the backs of the counters. This only works with one-sided counters, however. So when you have, say, two-sided counters, which is frankly the case in most war games nowadays, then you're going to have to come up with something different. There are magnetic clips that have been made by a couple of different sources at this point that will allow you to do this. You do have to bear in mind the polarization on the magnets, so there's that. But that is probably a workable solution for the most part. But from what I have seen, those clips tend to wear the counters worse than just the normal wear and tear that you would expect from counters. So we did see, yeah. So there's reasons to do this. Okay, I do think this works best if you are basically a one-game wargamer, though. or like you casually play a couple of different things, but you're mostly about one war game. And ASL and World in Flames and A World at War are games that are deep and rich enough for you to be a one war game gamer and still play those games, right? You know, we've got one more landing unit here, apparently. So I think it kind of makes a lot more sense for something like A World at War than it would for, say, Paths of Glory or something like that, right? But then again, you could play Paths of Glory in one sitting. Admittedly, your ass will hurt at the end, but you can do it in one sitting. So that's not really possible with at least the full game of A World at War. It's theoretically possible with scenarios, but theoretically, do what you want. There are, I think, as Commando Solo mentions, you can buy those little tiny neodymium disc magnets and get or print the 3D printed counter clips. And that is potentially a way to go. But boy, you'd need a lot of clips for. Now, the funny thing is the old fashioned way to do this, don't think this is a brand new idea, man. I did this back in would have been the 90s when we played War in Europe. And we did it vertically, and we used that blue tack stuff. I will never do that again because that left grease stains on the counters and the maps and friggin' everything, and it didn't stick particularly well either. So we will not be doing that again. Richard Coker, thanks for stopping by, and Michael Evanzini, thank you for coming by this evening. Yes, I heard this rumor that Carl was spotted at the New Kids on the Block concert. And I have no explanation other than, people can go do what they want with their own time and money. So it was the blue stuff that we were using too. Maybe there's other better stuff, but, well, for GTS, which is the context in which I've heard this used on, the coin cases for quarters should work, right? They're 5/8" counters, but that should be fine. And we do have to clip Greatest Day Utah Beach as well pretty soon. Now, those of us who listened to or watched the interview with Carl Parody last week on the Chit Show will recall that Carl likes to obtain a full second set of counters and glue the counters together so that they are monstrously thick, like one might find in a battle line game, for example. For a while, though, Avalon Hill, I've seen at least one copy of the old Avalon Hill Chancellorsville. I'm not sure which edition it was. That is, boy, these are very difficult to read. The symbol, for the airborne symbol is very difficult to tell the difference. Forgot I was going to say, oh, well, we're getting old here. What have been the stretch goals? I'd have to look at this. I'm not sure what the stretch goals are, but I signed up for the package plus all the stretch goals, which is like £100, something like that. So it'll be like, I don't know, $110, $120, something like that. You just have to keep flipping counters inside the clips, and that's a pain in the ass. But on the other hand, not everybody has a table to accommodate something crazily large like War in Europe or whatever. So there's that. No, not airborne units at Chancellorsville. Old Avalon Hill Chancellorsville. Not sure which printing or which edition, but one of those that I have physically handled the pieces for had chits just as thick as the old battle line chits, which are crazy thick. Or at least the ones I've seen. The only battle line games I think I have personally handled were Flat Top and Wooden Ships and Iron Men. And my copies of both of those games are the Avalon Hill versions. So, well, if it's a job to go there, that's completely different. Okay, so Commando Solo says that Journal 14 to 16 are the stretch goals. To be honest, I didn't do a lot of legwork on that. I was just like, yeah, whatever. Shut up. Take my money. Here's click, 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 click. Here's the pledge. So we're going to get, I think it's 13, 14, and 15 are the main goals. It's something like that. The extra, hold on. I'll friggin' look. There's going to be some 5th Frontier War stuff on that. Good size coin capsule. Like I said, I think the ones for quarters will be fine for GTS or 5/8" counters in general. They're not incredibly thick. I think that maybe you get the 50-cent piece sized ones if the quarter sized ones don't fit. I have not a single coin protective case in my possession personally. So, yes. So, 13, 14, and 15 are in the like base package. The extras included in the package include Institute for Conflict Studies papers on the Fifth Frontier War and Mid-Jump Crisis, which might be interesting. And then volumes 16, 17, and 18 are the stretch goals. 85,000 bonus for creatives. I'm not sure what that is. There's a bunch of like extra add-ons and stuff that you can like tack on if you're like missing some of the stuff, but I'm not really missing any of the stuff. If there's anything I'm missing, it's because it's not physically out yet. So. So this is some kind of Napoleonic alternate history, and I found it less appealing as soon as I read that. I did not have any intention of kickstarting this. War Room would have probably been a better choice for me personally, but I was not really in a position to have it on my radar when there was a Kickstarter for War Room. I have seen it on a table. It is visually impressive. Let me put it that way. So, we should ask this question, right? But the audience here is the wrong audience to ask this question of, right? Do you call them counters? Do you call them chits? Or do you count them tokens? Okay. I would say, and dang it, Carl, if I did not say this, thank you so much for the support. I would go with the quarter-sized ones. If you're worried about them not fitting, then I would go with the 50-cent piece ones. Or the maybe the dollar coin ones. That's a possibility as well. Oh, I've seen War Room. I could fit it on my table, but my table is not round. It is clearly intended to be played on a round table, however. That's interesting, actually, how Stigler puts this, because I have found that the old school wargamers do tend to use the word counters generically, but specifically when they are counters that one is drawing from a random draw cup or pool, they tend to call them chits. At least that's how I've seen it. That's anecdotal, and I suspect there may be some generational factors in here too, like younger wargamers, and they are out there, might be using chits or tokens more often. What I don't like, I won't say I don't like it, I don't care. I have heard plenty. Do I have one here? I guess, what do we call these? The empty counter sheets, right? I've called them empty counter sheets or sprues, or a lot of the Euro people tend to call them punch boards, which is a terminology that I'm not really behind, to be completely honest. But I am an old school person, so I am wise beyond my years, as the case may be. And I've always used the word counters, but I'll certainly sometimes use the term chit as well. So, what does that mean? Hex and chit. It does sound weird. And we do say hex and counter war games, but does anybody use that terminology who's not already a wargamer? The term hex and counter war games. Maybe the topic tonight should have been semantics, wargamer semantics. I was hanging on to him at one point. Now, notionally, I was not hanging on to him just to be a lunatic. There was somebody up at CABS, the Columbus Board Game Club, who was like, I don't know if she had a use for them, if she was collecting them or what, but she would take all the old punch boards, and I gave her a stack of them. But then at one point, I had a stack like this of empty counter sheets, and I'm not hanging on to that. Away they go. I had a whole mason jar full of these friggin' things, the counter clippings. And my wife said, "Are you fucking crazy?" And I'm like, well, yes, but I probably shouldn't hang on to these. I don't have a practical use for these. Hanging on to them is crazy. If somebody else is doing that, good for them, but it's just a little OCD. You may be on some spectrum or another if you're saving your counter clippings. So, Mark is one person among, What the hell just happened? Justin Penwith, first of all, thanks for stopping by. I, alas, will not be in attendance at the Consume World Expo. I'd love to go, but that is not going to happen. So he said something about Mark's book, and I missed it. So, but hey, if you want to, you could do worse than merely adopting whatever Mark has chosen to use for terminology. Let me put it that way. Molotov Cocktail says counters for leaders and units. Shits from a bag, markers, conditions. Yeah, but I never use the term markers generically. Certainly some counters are markers, right? So there's a Venn diagram there where markers are a subset of counters to me. So, that was Scott Bell. Very good. Very good. Christopher Smith calls them recycling, which I think is fantastic. Folks, there's 224 people watching. So if you have not yet done so, be sure to like the video. And subscribe, or whatever it is that you do on the platform that you're watching on. 0 people are watching on Facebook at this point, which is not at all unusual. So, but Rob Johnson, I'm sure Dan will be happy to assist with said antics. Brad says those counter sheets are known as punch boards in the professional printing industry because they're used in a lot of, well, yeah, that's why that when I hear the term punch boards, it tends to be from a primarily Euro player. This is, of course, Stigler, the grumpiest man in wargaming, shows his grumpy face yet again. Other trash. I can in principle come up with ideas that one might use the counter clippings for. But if you're just hanging on, you got like a whole shelf behind you of jars of counter clippings. And it takes a lot. You got to clip a lot of counters to fill up like a 16 ounce or whatever quart mason jar of counter clippings. I do, of course, recycle them and don't just throw them away. So do I have it here? Somewhere around here, my other mason jar is actually filled with counter spares. So like blanks or whatever that I get. All blanks, not like counters that are something. I'm just talking about blanks. I store those in a mason jar as well. And at some point, I decided to take some plastic trays and sort them out so I could actually like find some if I needed some to make replacement counters with. And that was not helpful at all. Once I actually did need to do that for the Crimean War Quad. This is another airborne unit. The airborne symbol, admittedly, the light in here is not amazing, but this is an amazing idea. Just an amazing idea on Alistair Logie's part. We should totally all contribute your counter clippings for Stigler's stuffed winter coat that we will be making. We will be making for him. So, yeah, that's one reason why you get married, right? Is so that people can check your bullshit. To be on, Mark will have one copy of the book at WBC. That's awesome. People can paw through it. That will be amazing. I mean, there is trash all over the place, right? I am kind of a believer in Sturgeon's Law, although I feel like it is breaking down to some extent as it applies to Wargames. Sturgeon's Law, of course, is named after science fiction writer Theodore Sturgeon, who made the observation that 90%, the percentage actually varies, of anything is absolutely crap. So Twitch, we've got 2 people watching on Twitch. And thank you, Commando Solo 193, because more people are watching on Twitch now, probably because of you. You're probably helping out with the Twitch algorithm. And Team On 6219 is also on Twitch. So I welcome our Twitch comrades. So, I mean, this is theoretically true. Just like there are rumors of other tabletop RPGs that aren't Traveler. But I am waiting for additional evidence to accumulate. So, all right. So Carl will be playing Vietnam 65 to 75. That's fantastic. I think that's absolutely fantastic. But in both cases, actually, I'm not sure which World War I game Stigler's going to be playing either. But in any case, it's nice to see people playing new and different stuff. Or old and different stuff. The Vietnam 65 to 75 is a seminal game for a reason. It deserves to be played. I do think I've observed this before. I do think it kind of takes certain types of players to like enjoy it, but I think it's worth the play. So This is my one theoretical idea, like mix it with paraffin or something like that and make little fire starting cubes in an ice cube tray. You could do that. I think that's a little more work than I need. So I actually have the fatwood sticks that you could go buy them. So if I need firewood things, yeah, demented is a perfect word for it. Anyway. Well, no, maybe it's less work to throw them in a mason jar than it is to actually walk the cardboard box over to the trash. I mean, it's not necessarily more work, right? Yes, this was exactly my idea with an ice cube tray, not a. Although the cardboard egg cartons might actually be a great idea. Mood lighting for wargamers. Do we as wargamers really need mood lighting? I'm not really sure that we do. I don't even necessarily like music playing when I'm trying to concentrate on something, to be honest. So nobody, I declare Stigler's birthday to be absolutely irrelevant because he is obviously like in his mid-20s, and just affects the demeanor of a very irritable 80-year-old man. So I tried this too, actually, but it was with the old style before this is the one that broke, actually. Before this broke, and the fact is, this is why I don't use this. I'm going to clip one counter. I'm currently clipping one counter. Listen, with the non-deluxe clipper, and you will hear basically no noise. Now I'm going to clip with the deluxe clipper, and you will immediately notice a difference. And it is not as loud as it has been, but it is noticeably way louder than the non-deluxe clipper. I watched a movie or something with the wife while I was sitting there clipping counters, and she was annoyed. So we will not be doing that again. Do you have, well, spill it, Patrick. Let's hear it. I want to hear it. So Scuttlebutt related to Thunder on the Mississippi. Hopefully it'll be coming out next month. Actually, I hope it doesn't. I hope they wait until December would be great, actually, based on the state of my wargaming budget at the moment. So, all right. So in any case, this is a great question. I don't know if Mark has answered it or not. My guess would be, based on this mode of presentation, that the answer is bookstores, probably not. Game distributors, plausibly. So, but I'm guessing. So if Mark has the actual information, that'd be great. So, yeah, that's a psychopath move. I'd be worried about a killing spree if anybody's saving their fingernail clippings. That's disgusting. So remember that I am using StreamYard. So there's a couple different platforms you could use to do this. So I don't stream to all the different platforms independently. That can be done, but that eats a hideous amount of bandwidth. But if you try to stream natively to multiple platforms right through OBS, that is actually what you are doing. It is not a particularly practical way to do it. So you can use either something like Restream, or I use StreamYard. So I use OBS to do the camera capture. That's not necessary, but I do it, and it lets me do things like the frames and stuff. And then OBS's signal is sent to StreamYard, and then from StreamYard, it goes to YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and Twitch. So we are streaming to 4 different platforms. Theoretically, you can stream to Instagram too, but there isn't a way to just set it up and make it happen. You have to actually get a special key for each stream. Fuck that. I'm not doing that. That's a pain in the nuts. So, Commando Solo. Yes, I saw. I didn't update the damn thing. I apologize for that. Unless I did update the thing. I updated the Patreon card, but I'm not sure I re-rendered the video. So, shout out and thanks to Commando Solo 193 for hopping in at the warrior level. At the warrior level. That's the $3 level, I think. So I do appreciate that. The whole annual thing is something that is new. So. That's weird too. Yep, that's weird too. That's the kind of thing I would expect from Dan. So, that's interesting. So some copies for sale at WBC. That's very interesting. Shipping pre-orders in late August or September. I'm not sure I approve of this, even though I might suck it up and buy one at WBC. The problem with doing this kind of thing is that that some pre-order customers will take it as a knife to the ass. I personally probably wouldn't, but I'm not in necessarily the same position as some wargamers. It's not like I am not lacking games to friggin' play. All right, so that is not a problem. For me, the much bigger issue is just the time that it takes to, I lack the time to play, right? All right, so Mark says that the book is likely to be only from the initial pre-pub printing from GMT, not exactly a Ludlam book. I would imagine that, I don't know this, but I would think GMT will print some extra copies, but, you never know. So, I suppose this is true, too. I suppose this is true as well. So anyway, I do want to actually, at some point, we are almost an hour in here, and at some point, I will do, we'll give it a few minutes, and I will do the Noble Knight shout out, and I do this too. So I did this too, but not for games. I did this for 3D printer filament, which needs to be kept dry. So I bought a pack of the desiccant packets, like a big bag of the desiccant packets, dumped them in a big tote with the hermetic seal around the rim, and that's how I store my opened rolls of filament. So, in any case, we'll give it a couple more minutes, and we'll do the shout out for Noble Knight. Then I'll blather for a couple of minutes, and then we will do the giveaway. So I do want to get to the topic at least before we get to the ad. However, so I did want to talk about. And I don't feel like the stuff we've been talking about has been completely irrelevant, but, at the same time, it's not the topic either. John Stanley, thank you so much. That is much appreciated. Bright lights. The problem is if there's too much light, I will look like an alien. You'll notice I have once made this mistake of wearing a white shirt on stream, and it was a disaster. I looked horrific. I looked like a ghoul. The lighting is not necessarily more light. So what I've got, you can see it in my, there you go. You can see the ring light in my glasses right now. Okay. Everything runs off the ring light, and the ring light is kind of the monitor. The top of the monitor is right about at eye level for me, which means the monitor is a little bit low, but it doesn't go any higher. So it's irrelevant. And then the ring light is about a foot higher than that. And that gives me pretty good lighting in this room for filming. For counters with text this small and symbols this small, it's not optimal. So with good contrast, it's not a problem. With bad contrast, it is a problem. However, this doesn't help me during the show. That thing is a light, which I can swing out of the way, into or out of the way. So if I'm clipping off stream, which is atypical these days, I can use that to give me more light. And it was a cheapy, like, flexible arm lamp from Amazon, but it was pretty inexpensive. It was maybe $20 or $25. So, as we get older, right? I used to say, "Oh, I don't need larger print. That's for old people." Well, I am now an old person, so now I appreciate larger print, and that does mean that a lot of SPI games and Victory games, in not all of them, but it's a combination of contrast and lighting and print size, and if I have two of those things, then I'm probably going to be okay. But if I only have one of those things, then chances are I'll be doing a lot of squinting and walk away from the entire affair with a headache. So, all right, we're trying to catch up to the chat here. The non-deluxe, I did a whole video on this. Look at Ardwulf's Guide to Corner Clipping. Is the name of the video. And the non-deluxe clipper does take more getting used to than the deluxe clipper does. It is basically impossible I've tried to do this in the past and failed. If I like intentionally try to misclip, I clip tens of thousands. So let me see if I can do it on purpose. All right. So that corner that I just clipped is a clean corner. I'm going to try and do a bad corner. That corner is not an incredibly clean corner, but it's not really a bad one either. So there is, that's a bad corner. That's right there. That corner is a bad corner. And I'm not sure how easy it's going to be to see that. So it's not really bad, but what you're doing is you're taking less off the corner and a little bit off the side. So you can see it if all right, that was not my fault. That was Chrome crashing. That does happen from time to time. All right, so I apologize if I missed any. Oh, Wise Guy History's here. Nathan, thanks for stopping by. Also solved with Zoom on Vassal, so you have that as well. So the answer to the question here is that yes, the non-deluxe model, it's basically impossible to misclip a counter with the deluxe model. And I keep the deluxe model on hand for SPI games, for anybody else's games, unless they're well, I shouldn't say anybody else, but like for modern games, that typically will not leave the drawer. I do keep it handy for SPI games because not infrequently, the counters are not perfectly square. So I estimate that I clip thousands of counters cleanly between misclips. You do need to get used to it. I have some techniques that I talk about in that video, one of which is to hold. So normally I hold the counter like this. I'll kind of try and do this and not have counters flipping everywhere. And yeah, I'm pretty fast at this. This is an awkward angle. This is how I hold the clipper. Okay, so I don't look in the clipper to see how the counter is aligned. However, if you hold the counter upside down, or the clipper upside down, you can see into the slot to see whether the counter is aligned correctly with the die that's in the blade, if you will, that's in the clipper. I don't need to do that anymore, but when you are still getting used to the clipper, I think it's not a bad idea to do that. I never did that, though. I just go by feel. I can tell when it's not clipping right because there's way more drag on the clipper, on the blade, if you will, if you are clipping like 1/8 of an inch of edge along with the corner. So all right. Internet, maybe I'll switch to Firefox or something like that. That might be worth doing. If there is no producer, we're a one-man operation here, Brant, as you know. So, Internet Explorer. Oh my God. They don't even support it anymore. So Firefox basically is Netscape. It's like the modern version of Netscape Navigator. So I like using Chrome. I have to admit, because it like keeps track of everything for me. Maybe I should just use this Firefox for the stream, though. That might not be a terrible idea. So one of our locals does this too. When he gets a new game, I'll pull something off the shelf just to use as a model here. So when he gets a new game, he very carefully removes the bottom of the shrink wrap and leaves the shrink wrap on the top of the box. I admittedly am very fastidious about keeping my games in good shape, right? But I don't think I'm crazy about it either. And that strikes me as just a little bit too much work. If a game's going to get beat up because I'm enjoying it and playing the hell out of it, well, I can live with that. And if that eventually means I need to buy another copy because I wore one out, then I will live with that as well. That has actually never happened. Probably the game that has come the closest for me is Squad Leader, not ASL, the old Squad Leader, because we played the crap out of that back in the day. Fuck. We're having more technical challenges here. At least this didn't blow the stream up. So there's that. Let's go. There we go. All right. So I was using, I'm not a big fan of Edge. I just don't like the interface with Edge, to be completely honest about it. Wise Guy was playing, oh, I'd love to see this. So that is the newer Atlantic Wall module. There was an older version of the module that did not have the rounded corners, and I did not like it as much. It's not a big deal, but I'd rather have, I personally rather have the rounded counters, even in Vassal. Just aesthetically, I think it's more attractive. So, and sometimes that does mean that, you know, you're going to see me clipping this probably for at least the next 3 weeks. So sometimes it just takes extra time. But bear in mind, you know, if I don't clip any counters from Atlantic Wall here, the SPI Atlantic Wall, off the show, it's probably going to take me a month to clip the whole thing, right? But considering that it's like 2,000 plus counters, that's really not that bad. That's like 6 or 8 hours. And once you can totally, you know, just kind of autopilot it, which I can absolutely watch TV or videos or what have you while still clipping counters. So it is not, I am not surrendering a single microsecond of gaming time to clip counters. I am spending time that I would not ordinarily spend engaged in a wargaming thing, even if it does not require any actual effort whatsoever. All right, so it's after 9, so I'm going, Eastern time, of course, so I am going to hand things over to our good friends at Noble Knight Games, the official sponsor of the Counterclipping Show.
Here at Noble Knight Games, we've been carefully growing the world's largest selection of board games, role-playing games and dice, war games, miniatures and paints, card games, and more, going on 25 years now. Our rustic castle contains more game and hobby goodness than you can shake a stick at, complete with careful packaging and the finest customer service the land can provide. You can buy, sell, trade from anywhere in the world, just like nature intended. Noble Knight Games.
Hi, thank you to Noble Knight. So, and don't forget, there's a bunch of links in the video description with a variety of ways to support the show, including the affiliate link from our good friends at Noble Knight. If you're going to buy stuff anyway from Noble Knight, use my affiliate link, and then I'll get a little kickback in the form of store credit, and we will use that when the next campaign is announced. Like I said, I will do that as soon as I have like a number from Noble Knight as far as what the store credit available is at the moment. So Nathan from Wise Guy History mentions, with Atlantic Wall, you can just clip the invasion module counters, then it'll give you many hours of gameplay. So this is true. Unfortunately, I don't know how Nathan feels about it, but I think the invasion game sucks. I would just as soon not play that invasion game. And I realized that there are some people that don't like the invasion mini games that you see in a lot of D-Day games. I don't have that problem. I would rather play the invasion out. But I don't like the way it is handled in Atlantic Wall. I think it is way too much effort for way too little payback. And I would just as soon not bother. I would much prefer there be a June 7th scenario. So you could just start on June 7th and not bother with the beach mini game. Now, the airborne landings mini game in Atlantic Wall, I don't dislike particularly. It's a little time consuming. It's probably a little more time consuming than it ought to be. But nevertheless, I don't hate it. I really dislike the beach landing mini game, however. So, and it feels like something that was tacked on at the last minute due to managerial interference. And that's despite liking the game. Darren Leveloff, thanks for stopping by tonight. Do I enjoy stickering block games as much as clipping counters? It's not that I enjoy clipping counters. It's that I prefer to have to play games with clipping counters. I have few enough block games that I've never had a real problem with stickering the blocks. I don't have that many block. I have, this is not in my database. I should probably do this. I would estimate that I have maybe 15 games with blocks in them, with not the little cubes. That's a little different. You don't have to, nobody's asking you to sticker those. Like the blocks that you have to sticker, I have maybe 12 or 15 of those at most, the vast majority of which are from Columbia, but a couple of which are from GMT. And I don't really enjoy that. And that I can autopilot that much less easily than I can clip encounters. So I assume that I don't know who that fella is. I assume he's not a model that they hired. I assume he's some dude that just works for them anyway. So in any case, Noble Knight has so much stuff. That's the thing. If whatever you're looking for, chances are it will sooner or later show up at Noble Knight. And I don't care if it's, if it's something weird like ancient 15 millimeter traveler miniatures or something like that. Just the nature of Noble Knight's operation means that at some point it's going to show up, right? Which will help with the next campaign, because that's not stuff that they have in stock all the time. So I do also have trouble keeping the stickers on straight. I'm also super duper anal about it. Doug from the Tabletop's Edges here. So lots of great YouTube folks are here tonight, folks, and you should be subscribed to all their channels. So this irony has been pointed out in the past, that the guy with the beard the guy named Beard is not the dude, one of the dudes with the big long beards. So, and Mark says, this is why I start France 44 with Cobra. Well, given what the topic is, I mean, I never took France 1944 as like a game about the invasion, right? Same thing with SPI's Cobra. This makes what I'm trying to get at is this as a design decision, I think makes perfect sense. And I think the main campaign for cross-channel attack, the OCS Normandy game, I think will end up being the Cobra scenario as well. The most expensive game on Noble Knight is usually something about around $1,000, but they also will sometimes have like bundles, like big ASL bundles, for example. And those may be arbitrarily highly priced. So, yes, except that, as was the case with SPI's Cobra and the Killing Ground, they eventually went there and provided you with a game or expansion, as it were, about the landings. And I'm interested in the landings, so I want that, right? And that's why I got Joe Balkowski's Omaha Beachhead again from Victory Games, which is an interesting looking game. And I am reasonably sure that Joe Balkowski, if there's a rotten Joe Balkowski game floating around out there, I am unaware of it. Let me put it that way. On any topic, but Joe is the guy when it comes to the Normandy invasion or the 29th Infantry Division. So exactly what I'm saying, Perfidious Albion. I'm already behind again, and I caught up when the cab crashed. So yeah, this is true. Well, so one of the things that Adam said when the Greatest Day Gold Gentleman Sword came out, this is in the designer's notes, as I recall, is that he didn't want to have like a lot of special rules. He wanted it to basically work with the rest of the game system. And I can appreciate that as another design prerogative, right? So I am having a great deal of trouble finding the airborne symbol on here. All right, so let's do the giveaway, for the tonight giveaway. So as usual, folks, I'll have people start putting stuff in at the end. And no, it's not the same as last week, because that's part of what caused the problem. If you are not interested in this, do not put a hashtag in your comment. That is the only thing. So, all right. So what we have here today, I mean, this is true. That Omaha Beach game is a tremendous game. That's the one that I did get rid of Palelu, which was the other one that I had. And actually I had Taro as well. I got rid of both of those, and I kept Omaha just because of topical interest. So Omaha, the Greatest Day Omaha is in the works, but if you think about how that went, it's a little tougher game to simulate beyond the beach landings than the other beaches are. So that I'm not sure I ever looked at what the most expensive thing Noble Knight was. I have looked at their most expensive war games, and those tend to top out around $1,000. But third printing wood box, $11,000. I'm not shocked by that price. That thing's gone through the roof in recent years for reasons I don't feel like I need to explain. So, all right. So what we will be giving away here is Secret of the Ancients for Mongoose Traveler, second edition. There is no third edition. I don't know what I'm making up editions now. It's a big, fat, very pretty hardcover book, not opened by me. I accidentally bought an extra one. So my loss is your gain here, folks. So if you are interested, I have to share again because the screen crashed. Hashtag Ancients is your key to get in on the giveaway. So hashtag Ancients. If you're not interested in it, keep the goddamn hashtag out of your post. Post whatever you want, just don't put a hashtag in it. So this makes me depressed every time I think about it, because what I had back in the day when Magic was big was a mixed alpha beta set, and I could have flipped that into either an alpha or a beta set, and that thing would probably be worth $250,000 now. I'm not even fucking kidding. Okay. I am serious that a mixed alpha beta or an alpha or beta set is worth an amount of money that you could easily buy a house for, a nice house in a nice area. So, yeah, I shouldn't have gotten rid of that. Should have hung on to that. So could have bought the house out of Magic the Gathering money. That could have happened. But we can't do that anymore. Think about all those super duper rare cards that were out at the time. So, this is absurd. This is actually, I realize that John is kidding, so nobody take this comment seriously. This is kind of a sickening thing that rich people would do, would be to play Monopoly with real money. So, no thank you. Wouldn't be surprised by this. I mean, if you can get a first printing, it's easily worth that. I haven't done a lot of legwork on what old D&D stuff goes for lately, but I do know that the original boxed set does go for a lot of money. Where people can get hosed is if they don't know the differences between the printings. In general, if it's a wood grain box, it's one of the early printings and it is worth considerably more. But just because it's a wood grain box does not mean it's like a first or second printing. I think they did at least 5 printings in the wood grain box. So, in any case, I mean, yeah, even a third edition Magic set, whatever they were calling that first white-bordered set, which I always thought looked bad, but, whatever. But it still had all the super rare cards in it. So you probably get a lot of money for something like that. Funding an Origins trip seems extremely modest for what that stuff's worth. So I did consider this game as the target for a campaign and decided not to. Maybe someday, but not anytime soon. Because, well, I'd love to look at this, to be frank. I don't want to look at this to the tune of $1,000. Okay. So, I mean, you might say the same thing about Campaign for North Africa, but I really feel like, we are going to get to playing Campaign for North Africa, and it's not even going to be that far in the future, to be honest. So, HUN644 says, wood grain box was the first 3 printings. So, we had this discussion earlier. I'll pull this out. The website to look at this kind of stuff, I'll put this in the chat, is the Achaeum.com. If you are looking for information about early D&D printings, and HUN644 is correct, it was the first 3 in the wood grain box. But there were like, I think they only list 7 printings, but that 7th printing was available well into the mid 80s. Those 6th or 7th printings, and those are the ones that say original collector's edition on them. The last couple of printings were like that. At some point, I will do a video about the Dungeon Hobby Shop catalog. which I bought a copy from Noble Knight a couple of years ago. It was like $25, and it's not in great shape, but it was a nostalgia piece for me because I remember pouring through that catalog for countless hours as a kid. Doug Lair, thanks for stopping by. This is exactly why I didn't go for this game. Up Against the Wall is just, it's too much of a novelty piece. There's really not much game there, right? It was something that was done for the Columbia University student magazine or student newspaper at some point. But SPI apparently did do a version of it. So it's, yeah. Oh, that's interesting. And I'd like to see it. I don't want to see it for $1,000. No. You give me Campaign for North Africa, I kind of feel like I'm going to be into Campaign for North Africa, to be honest about it. But this game, probably not. Now, on the other hand, if I see it at a flea market or a garage sale, I will grab it. So the other, hashtag Ancients for the Traveler giveaway, folks. That is Secrets of the Ancients for Mongoose Traveler, 2nd edition. It's a nice-looking campaign. If you want to see a review of it, Seth Skorkowski has started doing reviews of it. And if you like Traveler at all, or Call of Cthulhu, and you're not already subscribed to Seth Skorkowski, then I have no idea what you are doing. So we will do the giveaway in just a moment. So while I brag for a moment about the thing that I scored. Now, it hasn't shipped yet, so fingers crossed on whether it'll show up. But if it doesn't show up, we'll get my money back because I paid through PayPal. The Ring World RPG. I got a copy for about $80 or 80, maybe it was $83 or $84 on eBay the other day. It hasn't shipped yet. It's pretty beat up, but it does appear to be complete as far as I can tell. And for that amount of money for the Ring World RPG, I will grab it. So let's see if it shows up. And it has the Ring World Companion in it too, which is I think the only supplement that they did. All right, folks, you got about 1 minute on hashtag Ancients to give away for the giveaway on the Secrets of the Ancients Traveler campaign. As usual on these, if you are in the U.S., I will cover shipping. If you are not in the U.S., I will ask you to split shipping 50-50 with me. So FYI on that. All right, I think we're done clipping for tonight because more clipping would mean I would have to dig around in the counter trace for more counters, and I do not want to do that. So we are just going to call this accomplished at this point. The other thing you should be seeing relatively soon from me is a new storage solutions video on the Aegis magazine trays. I don't know when these are going to be available. I'm waiting for that information, if that information is available. But they're nice. I really like these magazine trays. So, there you go. Back in April. Put it in there again, Brant. What can I say? Chaosium should be at Necronomicon in Providence. This, of course, makes complete sense. Why? Oh, P or D. Okay, this does sort of make sense then. Maybe. I haven't heard anything about this, but that is the mint that has minted the coins. And sometimes the coins from one mint are worth more because of quantity or availability or whatever. I'm going to put the lid on this tray so that we don't have, if there is a tray flip of some kind. As soon as I pick this up off the floor, fortunately this time the counters that fell on the floor were in a baggie. I do use baggies to sort stuff in, but I more often use GMT trays for that. I've got plenty of old busted GMT trays with lids that don't fit. So, in any case, all right, folks, we are going to do the giveaway. So, and if you want it, you don't want it, I will yell at you. But also say so in the chat so we can redraw. Iggy Crichton is the winner of the giveaway. So, Iggy, go ahead and email me at ardwulfslair@gmail.com. The email's in the ticker with your information and mailing address. An actual name on the mailing address. Don't give me a made-up name on the mailing address. That has caused problems in the past. It shouldn't, considering the amount of bullshit that I get from people that don't live here anymore. But Iggy Crichton is the winner, so congratulations on that. So, I'm going to feel guilty if we do not. That was me just clicking the wrong thing. I'm going to feel guilty if we do not get to tonight's topic. So we're going to talk about series Wargames for at least a little while here. Not that long. So it occurs to me that series Wargames are I don't want to say the norm now, but they're super duper common. And I think one can see the appeal in a series game in that you only have to learn one set of rules to be able to play potentially a lot of different stuff. And I'm not going to talk about the merits of that. I know there's some people that don't like series games. They'd rather see a game that is designed specifically for the thing that the game is about. And I can see the logic there, right? But I also have, limited bandwidth, right? So I also appreciate learning stuff. There was a topic. We have been pretty on topic if the topic was just war games tonight. But, sometimes I will hit a night where I have other things to say that don't have to fit into the topic that are about war games or interaction with the chat. Scott Bell, thanks for stopping by. And we'll see you tomorrow when you get a chance to listen. So it seems to me like, and anybody wants to throw out more data, I'd be happy to receive more data on this. But it occurs to me that, as it so often is the case, that series war games get started with SPI, but not necessarily with the first thing that came to mind for me, which was something like Victory in the West or Great Battles of the American Civil War, but with the quads. The quads began to appear. I have not seen one with a date on it that's earlier than 1975. I think 1975 is when the quads start to come out. And I think those represent the first series war games, because remember, many of them did have an additional game anyway that would appear in S&T or something like that. We need whiskey here. And Mark, I am all over this. I am all in on the Civil War Heritage series. And this is part of the reason, right? This is part of the reason that attracted me to Kevin Zucker's Library of Napoleonic Battles, is that it promises to be relatively at least comprehensive, right? One set of rules that will let me do a lot of different battles that I may be interested in. And it's also nice if they aren't necessarily, I don't demand this, obviously, but it's nice if they're playable in a sitting or two also, right? Which the Rebel Fury games will be, all the Civil War Heritage games battles will be anyway. So the other thing is that, does something like ASL count as a series? And I'd say that it's seldom described this way, but I think that's totally correct, right? Because it's the same reason, the same motivating thing that would attract you to it, right? You can learn one game system that will let you do all this different stuff. As Marty mentions here, the problem is sometimes that designers will shoehorn games in that maybe don't fit as well. One can even point to, I think, if Doug is still here, he may be able to specify which specific TCS games he felt were not tremendously great fits for TCS, but I think this is true of OCS as well, right? I think one of those things is Beyond the Rhine for OCS, right? And I've talked about that before. I think there's some significant problems with the implementation of Beyond the Rhine, and those problems stem from the things that the system was originally designed to be good at, right? So Beyond the Rhine has some issues in that regard, and cross-channel attack may circumvent those problems, or it may not. I don't know. We won't know until we see it. Napoleon at War. So remember the quad, right? I'm reasonably confident. Again, I'm happy to be corrected on this. So I'll get to that, Kyle Harris, in a moment. So I'm reasonably sure that the quad Napoleon at War significantly predates the other games that fit into the Napoleon at War series. I might be wrong about that, but I think that's true. Doug says that DAC is not a good fit for OCS. I haven't played DAC yet. I look forward to trying it. Yes, there was, Kyle Harris, an ASL American Civil War. And it's a dumb idea. It is a critical hit product, which explains why it is both a bad idea and actually got published. And I assume it was also unplay tested, which would also be pretty typical of critical hit. I don't know if many of those criticisms I have of critical hit still apply to what Tepio is doing, but they might, and I'm unwilling to gamble real cash money to find out. So, It is a stupid idea because the squad is not a meaningful unit size for American Civil War battles. It's just a friggin' dumb idea. Mark says that he's finding that very intricate games are much admired, played at conventions, but hard on day-to-day gaming except solo. I think this is often true, but I also think there's plenty of people who like get together every week and play OCS, because I was one of them for a long time, and I got out of that because of, frankly, because I moved. And I would otherwise still be playing OCS once or twice a week. So, well, Carl, yes, I believe that your guiding hand would have been very valuable in this effort. So, it's not a disastrously terrible game or anything. It's got some significant problems, many of which are in the opening. It just would have been so much smarter to start the game three turns later, where Market Garden is in place. It's a done deal. You got British paratroopers in Arnhem. You can decide to go rescue them or not. It's up to you. But you're already across the frigging canal. Crossing the canal is the big problem in the opening. So, Alistair Logie. So most people are calling this FOMO, a fear of missing out, recently, and I can sympathize with that. Publishers probably do like this. Publishers do tend to like series games. I feel like, right? I mean, the gamers they're like entire, with a couple of oddities aside, like Circus Minimus. I mean, that was their model, right? Was series games. And I think they did a lot to repopularize series games. So this is true, but at the same time, I feel zero guilt about buying additional games in series that I already like. If they are series that I don't know that I like, then maybe it is a foolish waste of money. I'm not sure. Yeah, I suppose this is true. I'm not sure I can think of a lot of examples of this. The one I can think of off the top of my head is I forget what the series is called, because there is only one game, Washington's Crossing from Revolution Games. Very promising looking game. I've got it. It's Operational Revolutionary War. Yes, I'm all over that, folks. But there's very little in that space, and that's one of the reasons why I'm all over that. And I guess Roger's just too busy running Revolution Games to design more games in this series at this point, right? Another one, actually, you could see, I'm not sure, yeah, Fornovo here was supposed to be this Order of Arms series. And that game is friggin' gorgeous. I bought it because it was gorgeous, and it was half off, too, which helped. But it's gorgeous, and I'm like, man, I'd love to see another game in this series, just for the visuals of it. Gorgeous game. This is true, and I would be inclined to say that this phenomenon was well in evidence in miniatures gaming, even by the time the series rules concept started appearing at SPI. You've also got, as Brian Jarvis points out, Brian, thanks for stopping by, the sort of not a series, right? Like the Simonich operational games, for example. Coin's totally a series. I mean, Coin is like formally a series, even though there's significant variation between the games. There is no series rule book, however, and yet I've never thought of Coin as anything other than a distinct series, right? There's certainly, there is also like Coin-inspired and Coin-adjacent games. There's plenty of those floating around at this point. Some people call Root one of those games. Some people have also called the Expanse board game, which is by Jeff Engelstein, a Coin game. I think Coin-adjacent or Coin-inspired is more appropriate in both those cases, but John Stanley, thank you so much for the support. Once again, it is always much appreciated. Mentions that the quality of earthworks in ACW in 1862 is very lacking in 1864. So this is absolutely right. And one can see this in the Great Campaigns of the American Civil War series, where the rules for like entrenching and digging in and fieldworks and stuff like that are very different in 1864 than they were in 1861 or 1862 or even 1863 for that matter. William Aarons. This seems completely logical to me as well. He says, rather than buying all the OSG games, he stopped after purchasing 9, would rather include a variety of Napoleonic, strategic, and tactical games in my library. This occurs to me that I have never actually published the unboxing video of Napoleon's End. I never got to it. I filmed it. Maybe I'll release it. I don't know. Is there something wrong with the video? I don't even remember at this point. This does make sense, right? Some gamers are going to shop based on variety. And I do think that all wargamers that aren't like single game wargamers or single topic wargamers do this to some extent, right? They'll say, and I'll totally do this. I'll see, hey, here's a game on the War of the Austrian Succession. Oh, I don't have a game on that. I think I need that. And then suddenly I'm super into the War of the Austrian Succession and I have 4 games on it. I think I do have 4 games on it at this point. I think at least one of which is from SPI, plus the one, which one is it? It is No Peace Without... War of the Austrian Succession is a pragmatic war. War of the Spanish Succession is No Peace Without Spain. So I could kind of see an ASL-esque thing working for World War I in a limited way, but not in like the way that ASL does, where it basically their goal is to be able to replicate basically any like appropriately sized battle. You couldn't do that for World War I. But that's not to say you couldn't make it work at all. There's probably some Civil War thing that you could do to make that make sense, but I still wouldn't do it with ASL. I think it's an asinine idea. I am a big admirer. So this is another one of those, Great Battles of History is another one of those series that's looser than a lot of people like necessarily expect. There's significant differences between a number of the games and like what I would describe as the core system that one might see in something like Great Battles of Alexander or SPQR. But even Great Battles of Alexander and SPQR have some notable differences in the way they play, right? They've got, SPQR has the whole Roman command system and stuff like that you just don't have to deal with in the early stuff. And then if you look at something later like Hoplite, it's Greek battles from all over the place. But it makes additional changes to the system. So this is one reason why, say, simple GBOH can't be just used with any game in the system. All right, we are backed up here. I mean, well, just it's not like a the squad is not like a maneuver unit, right? You didn't maneuver troops in that way using units that small in American Civil War. In World War II, you did. In certain places. Now that's not to say there's nowhere in American Civil War where there's like where there's like 50 troops to a side somewhere. There certainly are. But those aren't engagements anybody would want to play, right? Civil War, you want to play Gettysburg or Antietam or Stones River or whatever. Nobody's going to be interested in playing out, here's a battle at Willie Bob's farm, right? That was fought over by 40 Confederates and 60 Union troops. That's the basic scale you'd be talking about for that system. And that just doesn't make much sense. There's no appeal to that. Well, Carl did. So to be fair, Carl was the guy who had the insight to say, hey, this BCS might work really well for this, right? I mean, to me, that makes complete sense given the scale of the conflict. I mean, you look at the orders of battle and it just makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to mention that this Phil Barker is not the same Phil Barker as MAR Barker. So this is different Phil Barker, although I understand they are related. I imagine Phil Barker probably didn't want to hear that anymore. So, well, yes, but at the same time, we recognize that there are series without series rulebooks and series with series rulebooks. The Simonich games, the Coin games, are games without like a formal set of series rules. I personally prefer there to be a formal set of series rules because then you can update the series rules and you don't have to change anything else. And we ran into that immediately with the CSS system. It's like, man, this would be way easier to deal with if there was a series rulebook. There is now, but it's like they're like 6 or 7 games in. So, well, yeah, this is part of the nature of firepower in Civil War and Napoleonic and a lot of related gunpowder type of periods, right? So Brant's got a poll over at the Armchair Dragoons website on the Tuesday Newsday article. So go ahead and check that. I did look at your feedback from Origins, by the way, Brant. Haven't gotten back to you on it yet. Jeff Beeler mentions the Levian campaign series. Ooh, so Coin did this too, though. I don't think we credit I don't think it's appropriate to credit Levy and Campaign with this. I do think it's appropriate to credit Volko with this, because we saw exactly the same thing from Coin. We're starting to see it from Levy and Campaign. Then Volko was behind both of those systems. So I think that probably here I am inclined to credit the designer rather than that. I'm totally unsurprised by this. And I think there are engagements where you can make this work, make that scale work. I generally don't think it's worth the effort to do so. Now, as Mike Reed says to a lot of people, it's not really a series if you don't have a series rule book. And you know, this is one reason why I kind of trace the lineage of series war games back to the SPI quads, most of which at least did have a series rule book and then individual little folios for the individual games. Not all of them were like this, though. Art of Siege is one where it's kind of like, I think 2 of the games or maybe 3 might use the same rules, but I've never owned that. But one of the games is like a completely different thing. And as far as I know, maybe they're all completely different things. I don't even know. So, but you know, maybe we'll find out at some point. So they are working on additional no peace games, by the way. I think the one I've heard about is No Peace for 7 years, and you can imagine what that's about. I'm all over that. No Peace Without Jenkins' Ear, which is actually not really covered by that, but it's part of the War of the Austrian Succession, as I recall. Is Undaunted a series? I would probably say no, but I might have had a different opinion before, say, Undaunted Battle of Britain came out, which completely shakes the formula up. Same deal. Ooh, there you go. Louisiana Tigers. I'd love to see this game, actually. Regiments with company maneuver elements. Now, this might be interesting to see how that works. And again, there are absolutely engagements in American Civil War where that would make sense, but they're not the engagements that people are generally going to want to play. So, and we might point to that as the reason why this is a kind of an obscure footnote in Berg's ludography, right? So this is a good question, though, as Bible Board Games mentions. I do think this is a legitimate question. But again, if you're doing Little Round Top and you're just doing Little Round Top, then it makes sense, right? Because you've got what? It depends on how much of the action you're going to include. Not every Little Round Top like depiction includes like the whole thing. But if you include like Chamberlain's guys, who I think is a regiment, but you've got Strong Vincent's guys up there also, which is pivotal in the whole thing. So, I mean, it's like, how much scope creep do you want to have? You know, how much are you willing to deal with? If you're just tightly focused on Little Round Top and say Chamberlain's men, yeah, that scale might make a lot of sense. All right. And Mike Reed mentions Louisiana Tigers as well. Unpublished follow-up was designed ground up. ACW ASL is a cheap knockoff. I mean, it seems dumb, right? It just seems dumb to me. Small Battle of Athens, actually, that might be interesting. Now, I could also get into a something that had as its design goal to cover smaller Civil War engagements, right? I just don't think ASL is a sensible platform to build that off of. So, Jeff Beeler mentions Europa. Now, Europa also never had a series rulebook, right? And there's definitely significant differences between some of those games. Specifically, I'm thinking of Narvik and I think Case White as well. And I have not really looked particularly closely at the GRD iterations of those games. So there is an Athens, Ohio as well, by the way. So Mark says that Tyre was the only game in Art of Siege that used the Constantinople rules and the rest didn't. That might be where I got the whole, there was 3 games using a system and then another one using a completely different thing. Well, so I actually it would be worth investigating when Avalon Hill stopped doing this. I want to say that was the early 70s, but that's a guess without it, to figure it out specifically, I would need some games, and I don't have, nor do I want Africa Core or Anzio or any of that. I had Anzio at one point and I dumped it because I don't like Anzio. I know people do. This is true, and I think we've seen this in some of the coin games too, where there's like a little bullet point list somewhere in the playbook that tells you, okay, if you're familiar with the series, here's where this game differs specifically. There are people that significantly like this series. I have not had a chance to try it yet, but obviously I thought it was promising enough to buy all 4 of them. But then again, I am a lunatic. So remember when I just said, yeah, it's a little crazy to buy a whole series of games and you haven't played them and don't know if you like it. There you go. Culp's Hill, another one could be, I'd have to think about that. Culp's Hill a little harder. Devil's Den is another one that could be valid at a smaller scale. The Devil's Den, the engagement, not the games specifically. I do have a copy of Avalon Hill's Devil's Den. DG's mini game series. So this is complicated actually, because Decision has the folios, which are in like 8.5 by 11 or thereabouts folio, Ziploc games, and then they have the minis, which are the little half-size games. Okay. And usually the minis have like 100 counters or less, and maybe 20 counters or less, depending on which game we're talking about. Now, inside those formats, though, so let's just talk about the folios or the minis. Let's talk about the minis. That's fine, because I know that this applies to both, actually, but whatever. So the minis then are just like a format where it's the half-size Ziplocs, and usually the map's like 11 by 17 or smaller. But then there are series inside of those formats, and there are some series like the Fire and Movement series that are actually available. Some of the games are minis and some of the games are folios, so some of them are a little bit bigger. And they've got several of those. There's one called, I think, Musket and Saber, I think, which is one of the ones I had. I still have this game somewhere. I've got a Leipzig folio game that's I think it's Musket and Saber, and there's a couple other ones. Fire and Movement is another one. I don't like that system, but I feel like I don't want to use this terminology for Critical Hit, because I think if they were just trying to get rich, they picked a really bad way to do it, to be honest. That said, my opinion of their quality is low, so there's that. Ancient series. Okay, so Ancients, my first point of contact with Ancients is Great Battles of History. Now, that's tactical or grand tactical if you want. If you're less interested in tactical, then definitely take a look at Thunderbolt Deluxe that's coming from GMT. Mark is involved in that. And I've been waiting for that game for literal decades. So that's going to be operational Ancients. If you want more strategic Ancients, there's what's it called? There's the operational levy and campaign game that is Ancients that's coming out. Epipoli is what that's called. There's a number of good things from GMT. You might look at Time of Crisis. A lot of people have liked that. That's not BC, though. That's AD. That's Crisis of the 3rd Century. So for BC, like Pax Romana, which I'm pretty sure is out of print, that's from GMT. Sword of Rome is also, Roman Republic, right, which guarantees you of being BC. There's a decent number of games on the Punic Wars. But if tactical is acceptable, then I would absolutely look at Great Battles of History. Those games are terrific. So, and they're huge value added packages as well. Oh, okay. So we got John Stanley with this idea, and then Stigler, I think, is responding to this, and he says pass. I'd have to think a little closer about this. I'm not sure that so the way I'm interpreting this idea, and I actually think it's an interesting idea, is with David Thompson and Trevor Bender's, I think it's just David, the Desperate Defense series for games like the Pavlov's House and Soldiers in Postmen's uniforms and stuff like that. That's David's I think it's called the Desperate Defense series. And those are really interesting games. But if you think about it, in all those cases, they're like attacking fortified positions, more fortified than what I think 1st Minnesota's doing on July 2nd, 1863. Nevertheless, I don't think this is a crazy idea either. So I think you might have to tweak it. But I mean, those are also games that don't have series rule books. So, you know, you just have to adapt it, right? David managed to make Undaunted work for the Battle of Britain, for Pete's sake. Labatt is one game series with a number of different rules systems that can be applied independently to any game in the series that you want. So I think that's this raises a good question, though, because I don't think the shared system rules is necessarily the thing that makes a series, right? Because sometimes they're different. You'll have different games in the, like Great Battles of History. Nobody questions whether this is a series or not. And yet you got War Galley, which is boats. So it's like, okay, we've got Alexander and we have phalanxes and maniples and all this ancient warfare tactical stuff. But then another game in the series says, hey, here's boats. Another game in the series says, hey, here's ancient street to street city fighting in Alexandria, right? So there's a lot of variation there. And those are games that don't work in, say, the more unified, simple GVOH. So this has never been pitched as a series, but a lot of people think of it as a series, and I think they are not wrong. So this is the Area Impulse stuff that is that Mike Ranella has done a lot of work in, and Storm of Arnhem, Thunder Casino, Turning Point, Stalingrad, Breakthrough Normandy are, I think, the 4 that Avalon Hill did. But there's been a bunch of others. MMP has done at least a couple. Storm over Jerusalem is one of them. And a number of other publishers. Revolution, is it Revolution? Is it Legion? I forget. That you know, a bunch of more recent games have come out from. So this is I see this as a family of mechanics more than a game series, but absolutely there's people that think of it that way. So the one thing that I would sort of be interested in trying from Critical Hit is the advanced Tobruk system, because I now know at least 2 people in Ohio that actually like it. Now, Mark says the 4th. So my understanding is that if you're going to play Anzio and you're not going to play like the 5th edition fan created rules or whatever's available on BGG, that the 4th edition is the one that you want. That is the one with the Roger McGowan cover, as opposed to the stupid looking Landing Craft cover or the even stupider looking Mussolini cover. That's the one that's in a black box. It's very characteristic Roger McGowan classic cover. That's the 4th edition. And this is what I've always heard, is that if you're going to play Anzio, play the 4th edition. And I didn't have this one. I had the earlier 3rd edition. It is possible that I would like the 4th edition more. And so I think there's a story behind this. It's not my story to tell, and anything I could say about it would be at least partially speculative, so I'm not. But yeah, there's a sort of 5th edition floating around on the internet, and if you find a copy of a game, sometimes it's called Italia, because it also includes Sicily and the rest of the boot, or most of the rest of the boot anyway. So again, I think I've said all I can say on this. This is an interesting point, too. ASL Starter Kit is a little bit different, though, in that it is adding additional stuff with each new volume, but mostly it is backwards compatible. So you can, for example, just start with Starter Kit number 3. This is true of most of the stuff up until Starter Kit number 4, which does, I think, require some of the previous stuff to do. But that may only be for counters and or maps, too. So if you got a full ASL set, maybe you're not worried about that. But, you know, that rulebook just kept getting bigger. And, you know, even in a Starter Kit 4, it's not that big. But the rules were generally backwards compatible, and or the volumes are standalone, so you didn't need absolutely everything. I've heard really good things about John Hill's Rebel Yell Civil War Miniatures rules, by the way. Commands and Colors Ancients. So I agree with this, but now you may want to look at Imperium Romanum 3 from Decision. There are some issues with the earlier versions of this that are not mitigated particularly well by the third edition, but it is the nicest looking of the games. So there's that. Oh, Jeff Beeler's first series was Steve Jackson's Melee and Wizard. Interestingly, I have several shorts queued up about the Fantasy Trip, which I've never played nor owned. I was interested in it back in the day, meaning like the early 80s, but I never managed to get a hold of that, nor did I know anybody who had. It's basically a like mini fantasy war game with, for Melee, it's dudes fighting in an arena, and for Wizard, you add wizards to that. So... and then they later adapted that into a full RPG, The Fantasy Trip. That came along a couple bit later. Valiant Defense. Okay. So, Athens? Really? Okay. I mean, that's not really that weird considering that we have a Berlin here in Ohio, so. Warfighter leader. I suppose this is true, isn't it? Trying to get caught up here, folks. I will certainly agree. I don't think Stigler's right about this in the way that he's putting it, but I do think that it is an impediment to people getting into Labatai because it's really confusing looking at it from the outside. So Eric from Eric's Table Napoleonic Battles has a live stream tonight of La Bataille de la Moskva, presumably the newer edition from Clash of Arms. By the way, the new edition of La Bataille de Wavre is available from Clash of Arms. It is on their website. It's not on the front page. You got to kind of go into the Napoleonic stuff, but it is available. Mark points out that some games share common mechanics and can loosely be called a series, but without a set of core rules, it can be used across the scenarios. It's not a series. Yeah. So, Mark, your Great Statesman games would fall into this category, right? They are unified to some extent thematically. There are some mechanical ideas that appear in a couple of them, but they're a series only from really a marketing standpoint at the same time. So, let's see. What about the small-scale games of Paul Rohrbaugh's High Flying Dice? 4 games in the Niagara Frontier of the War of 1812. That sounds interesting. I believe I've seen the D-Day postcard games that he's done with or through or whatever, however that works out, with ATO. Oh, that's interesting. Fans of Worthington's Band of Brothers series will be happy to know there's a new Band of Brothers game on Kickstarter right now. Band of Brothers Stalin's Favorites. Okay, Stalin's favorites are all dead, so there you go. He has liquidated his favorites. All right, so Perfidious Albion says he likes Advanced Tobruk, but only for North Africa. Beats the hell out. Well, so yeah, they did make some changes from the old Avalon Hill Tobruk. There's that. So I think when we said that sort of semi-official 5th edition, I think this is the same one that we're talking about. I think. So Starter Kit 4 is not Is it standalone? It's right here, but I'm not digging it up. I thought it wasn't. But for the most part, the ASL Starter Kit stuff is standalone. Even some of the expansions, you can just like buy the expansion and play that. So, and yes, this is absolutely true. John Stanley, thanks for stopping by. And again, your support is greatly appreciated. I don't really have much of a problem with the ASL Starter Kit rules, but it's not like I've played zero ASL. So, I wasn't coming to those rules with my hat in my hand either. So a lot of people loved Avalon Hills Tobruk. It was a very popular game. Cairo, Kentucky, or is it Illinois? I think it's Illinois. So I haven't played any of these. The same thing might apply to diplomacy, though, right? There were several diplomacy variants as well. But yeah, the map in Anzio, Vince Ree, is not great looking. I've never played any of these. Britannia, I want to say, is a Lou Pulsifer design. It's kind of Lou's signature design. It's a very highly regarded game. But I've never played any of these, so I can't even really comment. And Mark, well, I felt it was a self-evident statement. Is it even maps? Oh yeah, I should mention that. It's not. That's also not standalone. Labatide de Wav is an expansion, not a standalone game. So make sure you get the stuff that you need if you're going to go order it. All right, this is so as troublesome as it is to try to learn ASL from that monster rulebook. They do give you some tools for that, including an excellent glossary and index. So it is a very good reference rule book. It's just that you've got to kind of maintain it too, right? So this is one reason why I will unhesitatingly recommend that people buy the electronic version nowadays. The Birth of Canada. Yeah, so another example would be, I didn't even shelve these together, and normally I'm anal, so I would have done that. Prelude to Rebellion, Marco Petre's game. And then later on, you've got Prelude to Revolution, Mike Wilner's game. Those are using very similar systems. There are mechanical differences between them, but they're not even formally pitched as a series, right? This series does have a series rulebook, and I this is on my to-do list to get this tried, to be honest. For search functionality, and so you get the updates automatically. You don't have to worry about it. Yeah, I mean, sort of. I mean, again, the question is where's the line going to get drawn, right? Is it? Good question. I would say no, but they're clearly related games, right? They share a lot of the same mechanical concepts and adjacent periods, more or less. So I do need the new WoW. I actually have the old one. Thank you, John. I'm not really surprised by this. Much like Gary, Indiana, which is kind of a hellhole. OCS and SCS complement each other. This is true. I do suspect that most wargamers will pick one or the other and go with that, rather than trying to do both. Generally speaking, if I have the OCS game on a subject, I don't feel like I need the SCS game on that same subject. That's why I didn't buy SCS North Africa, even though it's probably very good. So, all right, John Strain, thank you so much for stopping by. Hopefully we'll see you back. Well, Mannering Mike kind of nails it down here. There are series and there are series, right? I mean, some series are really tight. Some series are hardly series at all, and nobody even thinks of them as series. Where was it? Well, Here I Stand, a Virgin Queen. Yeah, exactly. They share some themes. They share some mechanics. But there's significant differences between the two in terms of the combat. Tanto Manta, I think, is basically on the same model, so it's probably more like Virgin Queen than it is like Here I Stand, but there's that. So, it's 10 p.m., folks. All right, so here's what's going on. So tomorrow, Dan and I will be doing the chit show. I don't know that we have a guest. There may be trivia night, depending on how much work Dan is going to get out of the link that I sent him. In addition, I will pull the banner down in advance this time. In addition, there'll be shorts all week. There'll generally be one short a day all week, and then there will be what's actually coming up. I'll actually look instead of just trying to do it from memory again like a dick. All right, so we have the Wargames storage video, which will be out on Wednesday. We have the unboxing video of Campaigns in Europe Volume 1 Drive on Leningrad from World at War Magazine on Thursday. And then on next Wednesday, we've got the RPG flip through for an item called Secrets of the Golden Throne for Against the Dark Master. The fine folks at Open Ended Games were kind enough to send me a copy of that. And it actually looks pretty cool. So there's a flip through of that. It's pretty brief. It's only 8 minutes, but hopefully somebody will take a look at it because I think that game is actually really cool. And then that's into next week, so I don't need to tell you about anything else. So, and I don't have anything lined up for Traveler Tuesday, unfortunately. I probably ought to do some off the cuff thing about the Kickstarter though, huh? All right. But if I get to do that, I will. If I don't, I won't. And that's that. We got the time we got. So, and I did have a fairly successful relaxing weekend, 5-day weekend here, because it was, of course, Thursday was a holiday, and I took Wednesday and Friday off. And I got a 5-day weekend now, and only one of which we had to go and spend time with family. So that was great. So anyway, so thanks everyone for stopping by, and we will see you all again as soon as possible.